Tom Gimbel. My name is Courtney Schmidt, and I'm the Vice President of Membership for Texas Christian University CEO. I'm really excited to introduce to you Tom Gimbel, who is the founder and CEO of LaSalle Network, which is a more than $35 million staffing firm in Chicago. He founded it in 1998, and LaSalle has served thousands of clients and candidates, placing job seekers in temporary to permanent, and permanent positions. At 26, Gimbel left his employer to create Chicago's first account and finance staffing firm. Today, LaSalle has 4 offices in various business units. Gimbel was a 2009 Crain's Chicago Business 40 Under 40 honoree and inducted in the Chicago Area Entrepreneurship Hall of Fame in 2010. Gimbel holds a Bachelor's of Administration from the University of Colorado. So please join me in welcoming Tom Gimbel.
I'm excited to be here. It seems like a very aggressive group of people who are motivated to want to learn how to do a startup and anything I can do. What we try to do when we put these things together is appeal to as many people as we can, and everybody's got individual questions about things that are in your brains, friends that you know. In today's day and age, via Twitter and Facebook, we're all about 2 degrees away from somebody who started and built a successful company. So I'm one of, I'm sure, many people that you'll have listened to, talked to, or interacted with. So anything that I can do to share my ideas and thoughts on what's worked for me, I'd love to do. The fact of the matter is this: what's worked for me may or may not work for you or anybody else. And at the end of the day, there's a million different ways to do this. It's not like putting on a pair of pants. There's only one way to do it. We can all do it a lot of different ways to find success, and that's the great thing about business in America. And so what I've done in my company, LaSalle Network is a staffing and recruiting firm. We're headquartered in Chicago. About 95% of our business is local to Chicago, and we've grown that. We'll do close to $50 million in revenue this year. And so we are a brick and mortar staffing and recruiting firm. We use social media as a basis of bringing candidates in, but we do a lot of phone work. We have about 100 employees. Of those 100 employees, roughly 65 to 70% are recruiters. We have outbound sales. We meet with people face to face. We're not doing a lot of virtual work. We do it hands-on, talking, meeting, doing presentations, things like that. It's a little bit old-fashioned, but there's still a huge place of business for that. So our market in Chicago is probably about $2.5 billion, of which we're close to $50 million. So what I like to say is we're flying an elephant's ass when it comes to the amount of business that we can get. Okay? So for me, you can take all the cliches you want and find your blue ocean strategy, or you can take market share. And those are really 2 different ways that you want to tackle business. And what we do in an old-fashioned business like recruiting and staffing is we take market share. There's some companies that don't use recruiters, that we educate them and teach them how to do it. But for the most part, they're companies that are already using other firms, and we outsell our competition. We take market share and it grows. So to make sure that you realize that I'm not some goofball who walked in here off the street, we've gotten a lot of national recognition both by trade journals in our own industry, like Staffing Industry Analysts, the Inner City 100, which is ranking companies that are located in inner cities all across the country, to Chicago's and Illinois' Best and Brightest in Inc. magazine, which I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with. So it's been a great ride for me. It's been fun. I wasn't one of these people that when I was in college, I said, oh, I've got to start my own company and do it. That wasn't my deal. I graduated college at the ripe old age of 41. I graduated college in 1994. I was from Chicago. I moved back here. I had a couple sales jobs. I helped a local firm here in Chicago go from, oh goodness, when I joined them, they'd been in business for about 10 months. They were doing about $800,000 in a revenue cycle, annual revenues. And we took that from $800,000 to $19 million in 22 months, from 1996 to 1998. At that point in time, they were positioning to sell the company. I was 25, 26 years old. I was making a good amount of money, and it was better off, quite frankly, not to have me there. The multiple of my salary would have netted them more money than having me there. So I learned very early on what a multiple was and the value that certain people placed on others. I started my own firm. I invested my own equity. I was fortunate enough that I was a good sales guy. I made some money. I took the money I made. I got married early. I married a woman who was a few years older than me and put some money away in a 401k. We took that. We rolled that in. And a little bit of my brother gave me a small loan. The majority of it was mine. And I started a company. Rented office space, got a line of credit, built it up. And what I did was I went into an industry and into a company, or started a company in a space that I already knew. So I knew that I could sell, I knew that I could grow, I knew the recruiting, I knew that I had to learn the back office stuff. I was only 26 years old when I started the company. And I looked at numbers like that, of what the books said you needed in order to survive in a startup. And I read 98% of all startups fail in year one. It goes down to 75% after 3 years and 10 years, and all the data. And quite frankly, in 98, it was just a different period of time. All the data was hard to find. Now it's easy. And so I think, quite frankly, we're so much closer to people who found success, but we're also so much more accessible to find out about those that have failed. And so it was easier for me, with 20/20 hindsight, looking back at it, to go into it with blinders on and say, I'm just jumping into the deep end and seeing what happens. And the way I broke it down was, there's 25% time, 25% energy, 25% devotion, and 25% care. Right? Pretty basic stuff. And a lot of what you'll see when you talk to people who start up companies is it's pretty basic stuff. The question is, how good is your idea, and how hard are you willing to work in order to do it? So what do people don't tell you? What do a lot of the books not tell you? That you need to commit to working your tail off. This is not, I've seen it. I never bought into the 4-hour work week. I never really grasped that. Right? If you like something enough to start a company around it, why would you only want to do it 4 hours a week to begin with? Right? I come from the belief of, if I really like pizza, I do want to eat it for every meal. Okay? Right? When your parents, if you like ice cream so much, how would you like to have it every day? I would love that. Right? If you're going to start your own company, if you're going to start your own company, I think you should want to do it all the time. And I firmly believe that when you have friends and family on one side, as you get older and you have kids and all this other stuff, and you have your career on the other side, I believe that a really successful entrepreneur, a really successful business leader, lives with 24 hours, 7 days a week guilt complex. Right? When you're with your friends and your family, you should feel guilty you're not at your job. When you're at your job, you should feel guilty you're not with your friends and your family. If you have that guilt, then you're leading a really full life. Because you really love all sides of your business, of your life. Right? Because otherwise, you want to be in this thing. If you're starting a company, you got to want to live it, breathe it, preach the gospel, talk to people, because that's how you sell. That is selling. And if you're getting into a company and you're starting an organization and you don't want to sell, my own personal belief is, pack it up and send it away. Because if you're not going to sell it, how are you going to convince other people to sell it? And more importantly, how are you going to convince other people to buy it? Right? On call all the time. And it depends, right? If you're starting up an app company, or if you're starting up a brick and mortar, you're starting up a lending company, you're doing a marketing, whatever you're doing, it all comes down to the interaction you have with your customers and with your staff. But I'm a firm believer that one of the leading differentiators for most businesses is customer service. And if you believe that, then you need to be on call for your clients. And if they want to get a hold of you as the entrepreneur, as the founder, and they're going to build a revenue stream for you, then you should be accessible to them. And I think the same thing goes with your employee base. Is I think you should hire people you really like. And if you really like those people, then you want to be accessible, you want to train them, you want to develop them. When you start to have those kind of synergies, then you really create a dynamic organization. And whether it's a small $50 million company like mine, or it's a multi-billion-dollar company like Google, or whatever it is, the stories that you read is that, take Zappos as the flavor of the month lately. And the overwhelming culture that they preach and they talk about, how people care about each other, and the management philosophy that comes down, and how they interact with their customers. And it's at all different levels, right? And you have to be willing to take a substantial pay cut. Now, there's a big difference when you go out and raise private equity money. I didn't do that, right? I used my own personal savings, and I didn't take a paycheck when I was doing this. It's different with private equity money. I have a lot of friends that take venture money and private equity money, and they take a salary from the get-go. Personally, I don't like spending other people's money any more than I like spending mine. And I think one of the biggest problems you have in the startup scene today is people get more famous for raising money than they do for executing a plan. And what happens is they go out and someone gives them money and they think they have to build some grandiose operation. And I think lean is better. I think you start out a company that way. It's the fundamentals of success, and it shows how you're going to treat your employees, how you treat your customers. You don't start. I never believed in the philosophy that the founder or the CEO should drive a BMW while everyone else is driving a 78 Chevy. Right? We're all in this together, and in a startup operation, it's more so than anything else. Put the business first and yourself second. I have 3 kids. I really have 4 because I include the business as one of those kids. And I think you have to nurture it. If you want other people to treat your business as if it were their own, then you need to treat it as if it's one of your own. And it's a living, breathing organism. And when you start viewing your company as that, as something that you're so close to, you're passionate about, it really changes the way other people start to view it. And pinching pennies. You know, there's a happy medium between being silly and being frivolous and being a penny pincher. And I think that when you're looking at the dollars that are going out, you have to be smart. And you have to think about it. You have to price shop for office supplies and products. I remember I started my company in '98. Yes.
When you hired employees,
yeah.
Did you get hired from the previous company, or how did you know these employees are qualified, and how small did you start off with?
So I started off with myself and 2 recruiters. And so I did the sales and the operations, and I had 2 recruiters. One was a seasoned guy who I knew, and he was unemployed at the time. So it was fortunate that he could come in and take a little bit of a salary cut. And then one was a young girl right out of college. And actually, she never graduated college. And which is a whole other conversation about how I do college degrees and the types of rules we have for interviewing and hiring today versus when I started. But I interviewed, and it was trial and error, and I learned a very valuable lesson when I made my first hire. And that was, I kept her too long. I kept her for 10 months. And after we parted ways, I found all the things that were going wrong with the plans she wasn't executing. But I was a 26-year-old who never managed, I managed a small sales force. But I didn't have the breadth of management experience as somebody who's 35 or 40 years old and managed big groups of people. And you learn. And especially when you're young and you're doing a startup, you're trying to figure out the level of managing people who are a lot older than you, managing people who are your friends or your peers, and especially when you're in a young collective startup group, where you're probably going out after work for happy hours, or you're drinking with, you're working 10, 12, 14, 15, 16 hours a day with people. It's really important on how you manage both the personal life and the business responsibilities. And it takes time. It takes time to figure out your style. And I don't think you can get it out of the book. The biggest mistake I see a lot of people make is they don't want to manage people. They want to manage people the same way as they want to be managed. If it were reversed, right? And that's the wrong way to do it. I worked with a sales manager before, and she'd say, well, I can't come and do that because I never did those things. So you're missing the boat here. Do you know what the right thing to do is? Yes, it's this. Then you need to believe that that's the right thing, and you need to manage them accordingly. But a lot of people, we'll get to it in a minute, they manage out of the fear of people quitting. Right? And so they don't want to do hard things and lay down hard laws because they're afraid that people are going to quit. And you're mixing apples and oranges when you get to that bucket. We'll talk about it in a little bit. So building a solid business model. So you've got your key partners, you've got key activities, the value proposition, customer relationships, finding customers, revenue, the channels for that, key resources and costs. Right? And this could be a 3-hour presentation. But you have to look at all those things. What is the value proposition that you're starting this company for? What is the main mission that this organization is going to do? What are the key activities that you, as the founder and entrepreneur, are going to do on a daily basis? I've sat here with entrepreneurs who've already started their company, they've already raised capital. I go, what are you doing every day when you're having problems? They go, well, I make calls every day. I go, you got to be literally that vague. That's not an answer. You've got to be specific. It's like saying, I want to lose weight. What are you going to do? I'm going to work out. You're not giving yourself a foundation for success. And you've got to say, I'm going to get on the treadmill for a half hour. Right? I'm going to stretch for 20 minutes. And within that stretching, I'm going to break it down and do back stretching and leg stretching, whatever you're doing. And it's the exact same thing. I'm going to cold call for business. from 8 to 9 in the morning. From 9 to 10, I'm going to go through my LinkedIn connections and call those people and do those proactive steps and know where that goes. The customer relationships. Once you get a customer, what are you going to do with them to keep them? How do you show them that you really appreciate their business? The majority of customers think that anything that you buy now, they just bill you. How often do you get a thank you? When does your cell phone company send you a thank you? When does the cell phone company send you an email that says, we're going to knock $10 off your phone bill this month just because we appreciate you? They don't, because there's no loyalty.